Welcome to today's Canyon Springs Commute. Now, I'm not sure where you're going today, maybe to work, maybe home, maybe you're running carpool. Wherever you're headed, just commit to take the next 5 minutes to focus your attention on your relationship with God. In fact, why don't you just take a moment to ask God to go with you wherever you're heading today? Just take a moment right now. Now, there is a possibility that wherever you're driving, that you are driving into a storm. Maybe you're driving into a storm at work, or you're driving back home, and home has been stormy recently. Relationships have been rough. Or you're driving to pick up your child, and your child has been walking through a storm. I've once heard this said, tell me if you agree with this. You are only as happy as your most miserable child. That's true, isn't it? We feel the storms they walk through. Those storms become our storm. Now, one of the great promises God makes is that He will be with us in those storms. Listen as I read you some great verses in Psalm 65. You answer us with awesome and righteous deeds, God our Savior, the hope of all the ends of the earth and of the farthest seas, who formed the mountains by your power, having armed yourself with strength, who stilled the roaring of the seas, the roaring of their waves, and the turmoil of the nations. The whole earth is filled with awe at your wonders, where morning dawns, where evening fades. You call forth songs of joy. Now, to really understand these verses, you have to realize that the people in Jesus' day, they feared water. They were deathly afraid of it. And most of us don't get that. We live near the ocean. We can't wait to pick up a board and go surfing or kayaking or wakeboarding. That's because when we were 6 years old, our parents signed us up for swim lessons. I still remember my first swim lesson. My dad picked me up, he threw me in the deep end, and that was it. We're used to the water, but people in Jesus' day didn't take swim lessons. Most of them avoided water, especially during a storm. Now, let me point out one phrase from these verses that I love. God, who formed the mountains by your power, who stilled the roaring of the seas. God has that kind of power. Whatever your storm is, God can bring calm to it. And what I've come to realize in my life is that having God in my life doesn't mean there are no storms. We still get storms. But when I walk with Him, I can remain calm. I don't have to panic. In the storm, God calms my soul. Now let's take a look at an actual storm that the disciples walked through. It's found in Mark 4. It says this: a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. And Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him up and said to him, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? And he got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, Quiet, be still. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. Now, let me point out a few ideas from this verse. First, did you hear what the disciples said to Jesus? They said, Don't you care that we drowned? I wonder if you've ever felt that way in your storm. Jesus, do you even care? Are you even paying attention? My guess is you've been there. I've been there. But Jesus does care. These are the words He speaks to the storm. Quiet, be still. He rebukes the storm like it's a misbehaving child. Jesus has the power to say these words to a storm. He also has the authority to speak them into our lives. When we invite Him into our storm, He can shout, Quiet, be still, into our very souls. This is how the Apostle John described a similar storm the disciples went through. John 6:19 says this: They saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But He said to them, It is I. Don't be afraid. That last phrase in the original Greek literally reads like this: I am, no fear. In other words, Jesus is Lord over all the things that you and I fear. I am, no fear. Now let me ask you a question before you go on with your day. Where in your life is Jesus saying, I am, no fear? What storm is roaring in your heart today? What storm terrifies you? Is it death? Flying? Finances? Public speaking? A situation with your children? Are you facing a health scare? Are you driving next to a guy who's texting? Listen, Jesus can calm your fear. He's Lord over that. Make no mistake. The actual storm doesn't always pass, but even though the outside storm is raging, Jesus can bring an inside calm. Matthew makes an interesting comment in his account about the storm that so terrified the disciples. After the storm was calmed, those in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Now, this is a first. The respect and enthusiasm for this man is turning into worship. The disciples are beginning to believe there's far more to this man that they can see. There are depths and dimensions to this Messiah that they never anticipated. When they are with him, there is no need to fear. Before you go, let me ask you a question. Think about one area of your life that you're worried or fearful about. Each time that fear crosses your mind, say this out loud if you need to. Think of Jesus speaking to you these words: I am, no fear. I am, no fear. I am, no fear.